I'm Chris.
And I'm Kiley. And this is Redefining Resilience,
where we explore what it means to build a resilient lifestyle
so you can thrive in any and every situation.
All right, so I'm super pumped for today's conversation.
So am I.
Not only do we have a guest here, we have two guests of honor. Chris and Andee are friends that I intruded on. I made them be my friend. They opened a non-alcoholic bottle shop a couple years ago in Carmel, Indiana. And they were under construction, and somebody said, oh, I think a non-alcoholic store is coming in next door to Patachu, a breakfast spot here. And I was like, oh my gosh, shut up. I'm going to go over there and make them my friends because this is the shit. And so I walked my happy ass over there and said, hey, and I think was it you, Chris, who was there?
And I liked you so much. I think I gave you some beer.
I think you did. And so we instantly became best friends. Cue the scene from Step Brothers.
That's actually how we started dating. I liked her so much, so I gave her beer. That's not true.
No, it's not. So this was like a fast friendship that just has grown exponentially, and also the business has grown exponentially, which is so exciting to see because that means this non-alcoholic movement is just exploding and there's nothing but growth ahead. So I'm super pumped to get into this conversation with Chris and Andee, founders of Loren's AF, the second non-alcoholic bottle shop in the state of Indiana, second only by a couple months. So first in my heart for sure. But these two amazing ladies are sisters and the founders of the company. And we're going to get into their story. But first I have to ask, okay, what made you think that this was going to work?
Andee and I had both gone alcohol free, and we're very open that not overnight. It took us both years to get there to 100%. And by the time that both of us were there, we knew we had become like believers, right? Like disciples of this lifestyle. And we wanted to do something, like spread the joy, right? Like we wanted to find a project. We joke that we love a good project. And we something around alcohol free, and whether it's like a social media account or we were just bouncing all these ideas around. And a fun fact about it, we both love magazines. That is like just one of our things. Maybe we're showing our age, but we love magazines. Came across a magazine article in January of 2022 from Vogue magazine. Booze-free bottle shops are making dry January easier than ever. And it featured a couple of this concept of alcohol-free bottle shops, Spirited Away in Manhattan, Sachet in Charleston, South Carolina. Kind of told their story about, hey, this is just a store where an upscale experience where you walk in, but nothing has alcohol, and wine, beer, spirits. And I remember being like the backseat of the car with Andee, which is rare these days. I remember kind of floating the idea by Andee, and he's like, "We're doing it." Like, instantly, like, whoa. I mean, that's Andee. Andee has always had the ability. She's a true visionary. She's been like this, even very young. The ability to look into the future, to see not like 10 steps ahead, but like 40 steps ahead. Like kind of like where cultural shifts are going, trends are going. Just like, again, that Andee instantly, and I was kind of like, whoa, like maybe we could just put a pin in this until next year or something like this. And then Andee, you can.
Yeah, it immediately resounded with me at a whole body level. And I just felt like not only is this a full hell yes, we have to do this now.
You have no choice.
Almost that time is of the essence, that we need to get this open and let's do it. And the time is right. And let's go looking for real estate.
Andee saw the urgency. I kind of like, well, let's, hey, this isn't like, surely, I guess I didn't see what the rush was at the time. But looking back, I mean, there was a genius in that, the fact that our timing was extraordinary. And just in terms of capturing local media, which has been very much in our favor, and we credit, to our growth. And then again, just like I said, we're like a cultural shift. The timing was wonderful.
We were very fortunate. Yeah, the timing was great.
That's amazing. And I think it's really cool that the magazine was a part of what launched this whole concept, because it comes full circle, and we'll get back into the magazine because you guys have a really cool story to tell about that. But I'm curious, what did the naysayers tell you when this was just a concept, or what has the feedback been throughout the process?
You know, something that we've learned from the very beginning is that we have to be extremely careful when people invite us to events or want us to show up as a table to have a non-alc choice, to really make sure that we're a good fit. Because in the beginning, we heard so many jokes. What's the point? I mean, there's just so many people coming through saying the same tired stuff all the time. And you got to just make sure, is this something that people are excited about, or is one person excited about this and inviting us somewhere where nobody's really going to care? So we still occasionally hear some of the same tired 4 or 5 things, but really I haven't heard it in a long time. And I just feel like
probably the worst we encountered was when we opened our retail shop. We launched our online store July 1st, 2022. Like I said, Andee moves fast. Opened that retail store August, and the Indianapolis Star did a feature on us and on the front page, which Claire Ralford did a wonderful job telling the story. She's now with me or Indie. But then Indie Star posted on their Facebook, posted the story on their Facebook page. Now, I'm a believer in local media. We're both from the area. Nothing but respect for the Indianapolis Star.
Facebook's where stuff gets wild, though.
But once you put Indie Star on Facebook, the Indie Star Facebook page, that's where things got ugly, where people said some pretty unkind things. But I think she said it a moment ago, like, people say, like, give someone a soda and lime and call it a day. Like, people say that all the time. What a rude, weird thing to say. Not like everyone's entitled to like beautiful, wonderful, delicious, delightful drinks.
Yeah, and I think that, that could even be a possible overarching theme of this conversation, is that alcohol is full of contradictions and alcohol is full of gray areas, where there's no right answer or wrong answer, and people feeling uncomfortable and unpacking these things, where sometimes the most uncomfortable people are saying the most curious people are saying things that come off as strange, because you can tell they might be struggling with it, or they might have lots of thoughts about it in their head. It's a lot to unpack.
Well, you're calling out like something that's very sensitive
Absolutely.
in some people's lives. I know that alcohol in my life became a crutch very quick for things that I didn't like. So I just go have a couple beers and all of a sudden I didn't care about it anymore. And then you're 2 or 3 years down the road of not dealing with those small things, then you have a mountain of things to deal with. So I would assume when we talked about it when we first went there, I'm like, man, I bet there are people that are just looking at this like y'all have 4 heads. You're like, what the hell is going on? But it makes sense, though. You're giving people an out to go to a party, have a good beverage like the non-alcoholic Pabst Blue Ribbon that you have. Absolutely fantastic.
I ordered that today.
Of all the good beverages they have.
It's PBR's an American classic. So, but because you can have that non-alcoholic, you're limiting all the drama that comes with doing, the party thing.
So where we took, I would say, you could say a business chance is, so we have 2 retail stores now, and you can almost say they're destination locations. They're not high traffic areas where people are wandering in. So ultimately, people walk through our doors ready to shop. They've driven there, like they're it's not like, they're not just like stumbling in, right, like running errands. And so we don't ultimately deal with too much, like, once they're in their door, they're shop. Like Andee said, where the naysayers are when you're like out in the wild. Versus, Generation NA, the other store in Lafayette. He's on a main street, in downtown Lafayette, and I think he fields quite a few questions of, because he has people who are, just like legitimately wandering in, which we don't. Now, the business, while that's comfy for us, that we have to work so much harder to get people, in our door.
Yeah. Well, you all have done an amazing job of getting people in the door. Recently celebrated 10,000 orders.
What?
Huge accomplishment. That is amazing. How did it happen? What do you think has been the key to your growth over the last couple of years? Because it's been, 2 years?
It's been 2 years, and not this week, but next week, I'm going to a meeting with the ANBA, the Adult Non-Alcoholic Beverage Association, where they're going to reveal the first round of Nielsen data. and it's going to be really interesting. But if you're looking at trends and if you're looking at a lot of data, it's in this upward motion of people just having a greater awareness and more availability. And so I think a credit is just sort of to this systematic shift that's happening. So that's just wonderful. And we happen to be at the right place at the right time. Also, Kristin is, and I'll let you talk in a second, she is a Shopify genius. She's a tech savvy person, and she's put together our website in such a beautiful way that's made it easy to order, easy to pick up, easy to deliver, and really put in all of those back end pieces that have made, I think it's a huge piece of our success.
To borrow from like the Guy Kawasaki School of Marketing, we aim to surprise and delight. Like we really want to create experience when people come in terms of a welcoming environment, answering all their questions, the colorful tissue paper, providing samples. We wanted that's very, again, the decor. So you could say, surprise and delight in person, but we also, thank you, like we try to surprise and delight online. So not only is it a place where you build a cart, but if you go online and you spend some time on our website, I mean, we have a very robust FAQ. We have a blog that we invite community contributors. That's where we house, a digital version of our magazine. We have, like the product photos and
you can search for 0.0 alcohol. You can search for vegan, kosher, gluten-free. You can see all of these options. You can find blog posts.
So we really try to create like that, also an experience when you go to the website that you can learn the educational, and maybe an educator, like an instructional designer at heart, maybe that comes in play as well.
So, Chris, you have a full-time job on top of owning this store, 2 stores, and distribution. How do you manage all of it?
Well, do what you love, right? And it doesn't feel like work. I work in elementary education, which is a very early day these days. We've all switched these very early mornings. And, truthfully, the majority of our business is in the evening. So I love being in our stores. And again, when you're working with your best friend and you're working on something that you love, it doesn't feel like work.
Kristin's also always been like this. She works a lot. I love to work. We come from families with a strong work ethic. We love to be busy. We love projects. We love working. So It's just leaning into what she's good at, leaning into what I'm good at. And I think we get a lot of energy from the company.
And Andee's not giving herself, she's very techy very tech curious. And I think that's the takeaway we've had on this entrepreneurial journey is I do think to start a business in 2024, and you testify, affirm or not, I do think you have to have some tech strength in terms of everything.
Totally.
All the parts to getting a business off the ground.
Personally, or know somebody that's awesome.
Yes.
Shout out to Amanda, because there's no way, man. I tried to build my own website on Squarespace. It says it's super easy. That is not super easy. There are buttons that are hidden buttons that if you don't know it's a button, you just spend forever looking for the fucking button. Drives me crazy.
Yeah, I didn't even try. I was like immediately outsourced. Goodbye. Like off my plate. Can't do it. I know my limitations. You mentioned coming from a entrepreneurial family. Tell us about your dad and the namesake.
Yeah. Our dad he worked for RCA, Thompson Consumer Electronics, which is a mainstay in Southern Indiana, Bloomington, and Central Indiana for years and years. He worked there probably 35 plus years, and just a great business guy, always had great business advice for both of us. And he was passing away right when we opened the store, so we decided to name it after him. And I even look back and laugh like, what would Dad have thought of all of this? He was a very risk-averse person. So sometimes I just kind of laugh and I think, oh my goodness, this would have caused him anxiety. Or he probably would have told us maybe to not do this. But just such a good, generous soul, such a smart, caring person. I think what would have excited him most would be to see us working together and having so much fun and watching this grow.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have never identified as the word feminist, but I mean, you could say he was. I mean, he wanted his daughters to have every opportunity. I mean, that was something he was truly dedicated. Anyone who knew Loren Marley knew that he loved his daughters. Like, okay, there goes Loren talking about his daughters again. But that feels awesome, right? And shouldn't all dads, the fact that he was so, he just wanted every opportunity. He said he wanted every opportunity for us to succeed and to fail. He was incredible.
People come in, if I'm having a bad day, somebody will come in and be like, I used to work with your dad. He was the best. And it's like, it's usually at just the day that I just need to hear something where it's like, yeah. And I have to also give some credit to my mom because she is working in our store.
Oh yeah, I've met her.
Hours
She's
and hours
killer.
and hours each week. And she is putting in the work, and she helps so much. And she helps in every single facet of home care so I can work, and helping with my little girls and all of that. So our family is all in.
It's so cool that you all are doing it as a family and the family legacy in the name. And just for our listeners, if you want to look them up, it's Loren, Loren's AF. So alcohol free, not as fuck.
We're AF.
Yes.
That's it. It's going on a t-shirt.
Yes. I love that. What was the defining moment where you knew this was not only going to happen, but this was going to be a success?
I knew before we opened. I have always been an intuitive decision maker, and it wasn't recently until I took the Enneagram that I realized that not everybody in the world makes all of their decisions through their intuition. I honestly did not know that was not true. And I deeply felt that we needed to open. And then when we were on the cover of the Indianapolis Star, I thought, man, we did it.
For me, it was opening day. I really think opening day might have been one of the greatest days of my life, where the fact that was really social media.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like we're super, I mean, we can operate, but we're both in our 40s. It's not like we were doing, the fact that basically it was word of mouth, the Indianapolis Star, but that we had this blowout opening day, I think that was magical.
Also, Kiley might be asking more of when did your sale, I guess from our definition of success, we felt excited and we knew that this is exactly what we wanted to do. And we were just it was one of my happiest days of my life too. But then the data showed and the sales were there too. And I don't know when that would have happened, where it's like, this is sustainable. This is good. We're doing well.
No,
but I both from the very beginning.
You answered the question perfectly.
Well, the original plan, Andee and I also, I guess we left this out of the origin story, but we always wanted to have our own store. Mm-hmm. That was always something that we always wanted to do. I think, we're believers in shopping local. That's something that brings us joy, is finding new, cool shops. So I think at the beginning, our reality testing was, okay, scenario. All right, we just make enough to pay the bills, and we check off that we tried, we did it.
Yeah.
But then we never even dreamed of the best case scenario.
That's amazing. Okay, so we have to hear, what are your personal journeys with sobriety? How did this all happen? So this is like the prequel to Loren's AF. What led to it?
Andee got me started on, like I said, Andee's always been ahead of the curve. So she, 6 years ago or so, she's like, hey, how about this? I've been reading these books, the Ruby Warrington book, Sober Curious, which I love the term Sober Curious because I think it so perfectly captures really what this idea of playing with the idea of what if, because I remember laying in my bed the next day thinking, well, what if I didn't have alcohol wasn't part of this picture? How would my life look different? So I would say, about 6 years ago, hey, I think I think I'm done, because that would have been right. I think it was leading up to my 40th birthday. I think that would be awesome to completely be done with alcohol by 40. Well, no, I mean, that didn't happen. No, I did what a lot of people do, and I'm not advocating for this, but set silly rules for myself. In terms, the first one was I recognized that I could not handle hard alcohol. Now, I don't think many people can, or certainly and I joke I'm a terrible bartender and why I probably, drank too much for too long. But even someone recently, talking about high noons, and I was thinking to myself, why did I never get into high noons? That seems like something I would totally. And I was like, oh, because I really had ultimately given up hard alcohol before high noons came on the scene. And that was one of these silly rules I had set for myself. And then and then somewhere I said beer, because I didn't really care about beer. And then for me, then it's okay, then maybe, and then it's okay, well, maybe red wine's not really agreeing with me, so I'm just going to drink this white wine. And then.
So you eventually just eliminated everything.
But it was hard. I mean, but I still didn't. That's not the way to go. It really. I hear weeknights, and I think that's one way to scaffold it. But
I don't know that there's one like best way to get there. I think everybody's path looks a little bit different. But I mean, if it worked, I mean, end game is great, right? You're sober and not drinking and loving life.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And it looks different for everyone. You know, we talk to a lot of people who come in who have a weeknight habit that they recognize that might not be serving them well. And so that, you know, sometimes they want the wine to be the easy fix. And well, you know, you got to do the work. But, you know, and I was actually never a weeknight drinker. You know, I've always worked in education. Mm-hmm. To me, I was someone who really struggled to moderate like that. And I mean, but that's a lot of people. I mean, I'm not alone there, right? Where, you know,
but alcohol's biggest problem is inability to moderate. So you lose your decision-making skills. So if you're smashing a bunch of beers, it's easy to drink more beers. So it's impossible to regulate a system that is built to unregulate yourself. So that's why I don't agree with the moderation, because it's either all in or all out, because it's not built to allow moderation. And
we agree. And so and I thank you for saying that out loud, Chris, because we are very careful in our marketing that we don't want to push this narrative on moderation, because it didn't work for us, and we think it can keep you perpetually stuck.
Well, and the neuroscience shows that it's actually not better for you to just drink fewer drinks on a lower frequency. It does almost as much damage to your body, no matter if you're drinking a bottle of wine per week, and maybe that's like a couple glasses here and there, or you're drinking consistently every single day. It shows that the effects that drinking has on your body are detrimental to your health overall. So drinking a little bit or drinking a lot is still causing damage to our health. It's ruining our sleep. We eat like shit. Like, I don't know who said when you're hungover you need like greasy fried food to, quote, absorb the alcohol, but that's lies. I lived it, though. I lived that truth for a long time while I steadily gained weight with my bad decisions. And, you know, then your cognitive functioning is completely gone. The part of your brain that's responsible for making good decisions is not there. The part of your brain responsible for detecting danger, not on. And you're completely just ignorant to the shit you're about to put your body through. And so I don't think that any amount of alcohol, you're not going to find any study anywhere that says, oh, drink a little bit of beer or wine here and there and it's great for heart health. I think there was some bullshit at one point that said
resveratrol.
Yeah, a glass of red wine a day is great for heart health. No, it's not. It is absolutely not. And the cool thing about where the trends are going, the next generation, Gen Z, is looking at alcohol like we look at cigarettes. Like, it's very obvious and known that cigarettes cause cancer. If you don't want cancer from cigarettes, don't smoke cigarettes. Alcohol is doing the same thing. It's ruining our bodies. It's creating a lot of stress hormone in our system. And that chronic stress is leading to all sorts of health issues.
Which is a hard thing for people to conceptualize too. Like, you're asking some people to erase 30 plus years of knowledge and habits over new
identity.
Data. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and identity. It's new data. And the problem with new data is it's a lot of times it's hard to swallow. And they just didn't have it back then. And we're talking 20 years ago. It just didn't exist.
We just don't know what we don't know, but now we know. So if you know better, you kind of got to do better or don't, right? That's your choice. Like, accept the consequence of those decisions, but it's our responsibility. It's personal responsibility on each one of us to make those good choices. So, Andee, what prompted you to go down this sobriety journey? You obviously inspired Chris to do it, so we have to know now what prompted you.
Well, I get a little nervous sharing my story because I needed to stop for a long time, and it was a little messier, and it had, there was a lot of apologies, and I still think there's a lot of people in this community are thinking, good for Andee, that she's done this. Like, I can see her now shining. A lot of things aligned at the right time where I was finally done. And also, the timing was right. I had been divorced maybe a year or two, and it was really important for me to be standing in my power and to have all of my mental capacity to fight for what I needed to and to show up and to not have any possible ding that could go against me. So this was me making a huge transition from trying the moderation, it's not working. Very clearly, this is something that I needed to do, but also taking this shift where it's like standing in my power and having no idea of what my life was about to turn into, all the amazing things that were about to happen. I mean, if you just would have told me, I wouldn't have even believed you of what was in my path years down the road. And I'm unlike Kristin. Kristin is so outgoing and she's got a million friends and she's so easy to talk to. And she does our email and she meets the people. And I'm very shy and I'm a little more behind the scenes. And so when I stopped drinking, I just stayed in my house. I didn't know that these drinks existed and a lot of them didn't exist at the time. And I used to take part in a lot of networking, and I just kind of didn't do that for a while. But what I'm hearing in the store that means so much to me is that if somebody's at a networking event or if somebody's where they want to just show up and do their best or be their best, and they see someone else isn't drinking and someone says, oh my gosh, you're not drinking. All you sometimes need to see is just one person at some sort of event that isn't drinking or has an alcohol-free PBR or is drinking something entirely different. And that is so inspiring and that is so exciting. So it was a long time coming, and the magic and the strength and the power that came from that, I just had no idea. And it was such a beautiful thing that happened to me. And I think I got excited about it. And I think Kristin probably saw a pretty big transformation in my life. And maybe it helped her have this decision. I'm not sure. I've always been a little, Kristin's always been a good person doing good things. So making that transition to do it with me was so meaningful and it was so special.
It's amazing what can happen when you take control of your life. It's a little scary, but now you're in control of all your variables.
Absolutely.
So you're not limited by a bunch of shit that you're not in control of, and you control all the little tiny things. We do a pattern recognition game or workbook called Uncontrolled Controlled Variables Worksheet, and you list everything you're in control of down to making your bed, combing your hair, brushing your teeth. It's like 80-20. The 20 is the uncontrolled, 80 is the controlled. All you did is just put more in the controlled variable realm, and then you see how much power you have, which is unfucking real.
Unreal.
Yeah.
And even just with the health and wellness, I thought a lot of people that would shop at our store would be like, I'm super curious, I'm quitting. Well, really, it's a lot of people that care about their health and their wellness, that are working out more, or maybe they're into buying face creams and doing a 10-step process or getting facials. It's like they're caring about their bodies and their wellness. So why are you putting all these massive roadblocks in your road by bringing on alcohol too, which is going to mess up that sleep and do all of that? You're just reversing yourself. And these people are investing in their health and their mental health and their all of these pieces. So
it's very cool.
It's part of it.
I like to say some of the most fascinating people we know are alcohol free.
Absolutely. And the most fun.
I totally agree.
Because a fun story is we had a hard time connecting with someone on commercial real estate, and we landed with this woman, Elena, who we adore. We're still have a great relationship with. She's a broker, but we sat down with her. I remember on Carmel Drive at the time when she was with 21 Sheets, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm alcohol free." Oh my God, it was crazy. We were meant to be. You're a broker, our person, and then also now we're working with a trademark attorney, Kristin Atkins, who's phenomenal, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm alcohol free." I was like, "Of course you are, because you're fabulous, Kristin." But we're learning some of the most people who are doing the most interesting things are alcohol free.
And I think it's like a wavelength where it's like is attracting because I never knew anybody like this before. And now the amount of people that are alcohol free doing incredible things, it's so energizing. It's the coolest thing.
I have a lot of clients that choose to work with me because I'm alcohol free.
Wow.
I also have some people who are like, oh, it's so brave of you to share your story on social. Do you ever get worried that people are going to judge you or you're going to lose business? I'm like, no, it's quite the opposite, actually. I get business because I talk about this stuff. And you know what? Let's make this the norm, because this is the healthy choice. If we're going to change the world and help make humanity better, we've got to get them off the poison. and make that the norm instead of 60% of the US drinking and we're the minorities. Let's flip that and do a 180 and let's make this the norm and help make people healthy again. Before we needed all of this. Like, the crazy thing to me is we have far more convenience than we ever have in the world, yet we have far more stress and depression and anxiety. And it's like, once you make the correlation, it's like the chicken or the egg. Alcohol causes stress. Stress makes me drink. Drinking causes more stress. Like, half my stress came from, well, did I say something stupid last night? Did I embarrass myself? Oh my God. What was I? Did I fall? Like, why do I have this random bruise on my leg? How did I even get home? Where's my car? Like, all of these questions that really I should not be asking myself as a grown-ass adult. Like, if I'm responsible and, quote, like, drinking moderately, like, I shouldn't be asking myself these things the next day. And then, oh, by the way, I feel like dog shit. I'm running to the toilet every other hour. I can't keep water down because my stomach is so upset, trying to get rid of this poison out of my body. Oh, and that long-ass to-do list that I thought I was going to knock out today on Sunday. No, I'm just going to binge watch Netflix instead because, I am not feeling great. I need a self-care day.
Just imagine the amount of things we could get done if we wouldn't have spent 15 years dicking around, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I could drain a 30-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon by myself and had done that on multiple occasions. And I was just useless. Like, personally, me looking back at my life, there were several sections of time where I was a complete turd. Like, I just didn't accomplish anything. It was just this running around a base camp, not really going anywhere, doing a lot of things, but not accomplishing anything. Mm-hmm. And it's like your brain wakes up again once you get off. And it's not just an instant. It's like a long curve. You know, I think I'm about 2 years in. And the first year was, I didn't even recognize myself. I would say things or we'd have conversations and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I'm way quicker, way wittier, I'm solving problems faster. But you don't realize that. It's like we're all dumbed down by this massive drug that is ruining our lives. And once we get out from underneath it, it's like a completely different world.
The only thing I can compare it to, it's like when I was drinking, I felt like I had this giant fog surrounding my brain. Couldn't see, couldn't think. Like, the most important thing was drinking, which just fueled the fog. And then once I stopped, it's like all the fog went away, and now I can see a future so clearly. I can see 10 years out. You would have asked me what my 10-year goal was back when I was drinking, even just 4 years ago. I would have been like, I don't know. I can't even think about, like, next week because I'm just living for the weekends right now.
One of the side effects that Kristin and I talk about is that when we first stopped drinking, we almost didn't know what to do with the time and the energy that we had. The amount of free time that we had completely opened up, but also the energy to want to do things and to try new things or to go places.
Okay, so what new hobbies? What new hobbies did you pick up? Because I have a list.
One thing that I always wanted to do for years and years and years in my heart was make an Oracle card deck. Ooh. And I made an Oracle card deck and I sell it at the shop and people like it. And it's not very woo-woo. You just pick it up and you've got an answer, but it gives you reason to think about whatever you're doing. So I had a really fun time designing it and it all just happened really quick. And I had wanted to do it for years and years and years. And I did it and I was so happy.
Well, you need to go back on what Kiley, you're saying. How do you work full time when you have this business? And really, it's not that bad when you have, because again, when you're not drinking, you've reclaimed all this time. And also, I think there's something about entrepreneurship in your 40s where you've become more efficient with your time, or we've been a lot more thoughtful with what we say right? Like the no's, the hell yeses. And like, I don't, and I know that like, just from a health perspective, sleep being so essential and restorative, like I'll never sacrifice sleep.
Hell no.
Which is why we're hyper organized, that we work backward and we really think strategically, about our calendar, because both of us we know that sleep is essential for being our best selves. But I'm sure that there are plenty of people who spend more time running around to youth sports than I spend on our business in a week.
Man, kids' calendars these days. So true. I picked up so many random hobbies when I stopped drinking. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this time. Like, I'm not going to a bar on a Friday night. Yeah, you start grad school. I think I got like 4 certifications at that point in time. I started paint by numbers. I created the Mona Lisa. It's a painting of a Frenchie that I named after Herman, the Mona Lisa. You're welcome. I thought it was pretty punny. And it now proudly hangs in our living room. And I started puzzles. I mean, you name it. I was like, oh, I got a rock tumbler. I then was like smoothing out rocks for long period of time. Like, I picked up so many random hobbies. And then I'm like, okay, I could probably go to a bar and be just fine. And I do that all the time now. It's no big deal. I have no problem ordering a Diet Coke or a soda water with a little lemon if they don't have any NA options. But most of the time you can go places and they at least have 1 or 2 NA options and some mocktails usually, or they know how to make some mocktails. But it's getting a lot easier to be NA out in public.
Well, something we'd like to see, we got to
Yes.
Put out what you want in the world, right? Like put out in the universe. We're working to get more wines in restaurants.
Totally.
And that's been a hard sell because we do have a distribution side to our business. Credit to Andee for launching that about a year ago. And we represent 3 beautiful wine brands. I mean, they're just like top of the category, outstanding.
Multiple award winning.
We're so proud. We love representing these brands. And we love our list of accounts. We'd love to see him work with more restaurants, but it take time.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you have a favorite restaurant, ask them to carry a non-alcoholic wine if you're interested in trying it while you're out to eat.
I was thinking, I'm not going to mention, but my husband and I were at a favorite restaurant that we love, and when you don't drink, your bill is considerably less, right? Like, I mean, we had done appetizers and sushi, and now it was like $100, but I was like, hey, if they had alcohol wine on the menu, it would have easily been double.
Oh yeah,
and would happily have paid double.
Yeah,
if they had alcohol-free wine on the menu.
If you're listening and you own a restaurant, this is an opportunity for you, and Chris will come frequent your restaurant on a regular basis. So what do you think some of the misperceptions about being sober are? Because I think it's worth discussing, because I absolutely was like a hater at the beginning. At one point, Tommy Short, who was on our podcast not long ago, he and I were coworkers, and he said, "Oh, I'm doing 75 hard. You want to do it with me?" I was like, "Hell no! You can't drink when you're doing 75 hard, and you're starting this over my birthday. So like, absolutely not. Will I be sober on my birthday?" Well, I've now had 2 birthdays sober. 3 birthdays sober, and this will be my 4th coming up in October where I haven't drank. So like, what would you say to the former self who might have been like critiquing sober life or saying, nah, it's not for me?
I used to smoke cigarettes for a very long time. And I also used to work in the theater for a long time. And my boss smoked cigarettes, and we would have meetings outside smoking cigarettes. And I loved him, and I loved everybody at the theater, and we all smoked cigarettes. And I knew that I had to stop. And I got the medication to stop, and that was easy. It just like turned off a switch. And I was like, this is amazing. I took a pill and it stopped. But then I had to do all of this unpacking of like, who am I? When am I having these meetings? I mean, there was a strangely large amount of things to figure out about my identity and who I was for stupid cigarettes. And alcohol can be the same way. It can be easy and it can be tough. But I'm just a much better version of myself. I was always supposed to be quiet. I was always supposed to be nerdy. Like I just feel so much more comfortable in my own skin. And it can be easy and it can be hard, but I love myself way more than I ever have. That sounds cheesy, but it's true.
That's not cheesy at all. So, but hard things are good for you. Mm-hmm. They challenge you and they press you. And there's no good without evil. And you have to have the hard things to find out what's beautiful in life. Mm-hmm. And if you don't go through a little bit of pressure, which is so good for the body, you don't realize what you're worth. Mm-hmm. So I think it's absolutely fantastic to say, yeah, this is hard, but all good things come from a little bit of pressure. So
very well said.
What would you say to the people who might say, "Oh, well, I don't think I'd be any fun if I wasn't drinking"?
In the shop, I hear, "Oh, I decided not to drink, and my friend said you're not going to be any fun." I don't know. I don't understand what that is. I don't understand what the pressure is.
Yeah, and I think thinking about like really what brings you joy, like I'm a reader at heart. Making sure that you're doing activities that align with like what you really enjoy. Really questioning, do you even enjoy going? For someone. Yeah,
I used to go out all the time, and I don't like it.
Doesn't it feel empty? Like it feels like sadness. I don't know how else to explain it. Like when I would go to a bar, it'd be like I was going out to find a soulmate. Like I was single most of the time when I was going to the bars. If I was going to the bar with somebody I was dating, it was like not fun.
We have a couple people on our we have a sales team at our stores, and 3 of them are single and adorable. Let us know after the podcast. No,
single ladies or single
beautiful,
men?
Beautiful, talented,
right.
wonderful
Men.
And so we talk about this sometimes, but I think there's the value to sober dating because I get, and that's easy for me to say because I'm married and I went to alcohol free after getting married. And Andee can talk about sober dating. Is that you can fast forward, right? You I looking back, I think about some guys that I got wrapped up in or maybe talked to for too long because we had these series of buzz dates where they were just meaningless or they were stupid. Sorry, I can't think of a better word. I can't.
Well, you weren't your real
totally.
self.
Yeah.
You weren't even making logical decisions. So not to be shitting on alcohol real hard and saying everybody that drinks it is an idiot, it ruins your decision-making skills. That is a fact.
Yeah.
So if we're dumbing our decision-making skills down and we're trying to find the person we want to spend the rest of our fucking life with, that's probably not a good idea to mix the two, right? Like you're not going to be
sounds so obvious
killing
when
it.
you say it.
Right? I remember the first sober date I went on because I was dating in the midst of this transition in my life. So I remember the first sober date I was on, like he was drinking and I just sat there and he talked the entire time, obviously before Chris. He talked the entire time and I just sat there like having a conversation in my head while he was talking. Like don't even know what he was telling me about, but I felt like it was more like a prospect meeting than a date. I think he unloaded all of his business problems on me. And the whole time I was just thinking in my head, I bet if I had vodka in this soda water right now, I'd be a little bit more tolerable of this. And I'd probably think like, oh, how could I make this work? This might work. Like maybe there's potential here. Yeah, he's not that cute and he talks a lot. He hasn't asked me a single question about me. He's not really interested in me very clearly, but like my drunk self probably would have been like making compromises the whole time. And I realized after, even with my friend groups, I was making compromises with my friend groups the whole time. Like I didn't actually align from a value standpoint with a lot of the people that I was hanging out with on a regular basis. And then after I stopped drinking, I cut out a lot of friends. Unfortunately, I just felt like they weren't a good influence on my life, and if all they're doing is going out to bars and partying, I just don't have anything in common with them anymore. Now I have other friends who are super supportive, and they can drink while I don't drink, and they pick activities that they know I'm going to be interested in, like live music or some kind of show, whatever it might be, or even just something outside like the farmer's market. Like I love doing activities like that, but I just know that when I was drinking, I didn't even know who I was, let alone who I wanted to be around.
That's it right there. You don't even know who the person in the mirror is. That's the biggest problem. How can you make decisions if you don't even know who's making the decision? You know, that's wild. That's why it is so easy to get on this, I don't know if it's a soapbox, but like I need to bring as many people into the fold as possible because I think humans are absolutely phenomenal and we're just hurting ourselves. Well, we're stopping the excellence.
Look at what all four of us in this room have said the entire time. Life is better. Life is exponentially better without alcohol. That was the one thing. I had talked to several people. I talked to a chiropractor who was younger than me, and he was like 28 or something and stopped drinking. And I'm like, well, how do you do it? Like, what do you do when you go to a concert? What do you do when you go to like a family event? I literally asked these questions because I'm like, I need to know how he thinks about this stuff. And then my mentor and communications coach, Alex, had been sober for a while. So I consulted her too while I was in the process of making this decision and was like, okay, like you've posted about this publicly. Like you seem fairly normal. Like I didn't think you had a problem. Like, and she's like, I made it seem like I didn't have a problem, or maybe I didn't like technically have a problem, but like it was a problem for me. And as soon as she said it was a problem for me, I was like, oh, that really makes sense. Like, could I be further along if I didn't have alcohol weighing me down? Yeah, for sure. And that really was like the deciding factor. It came down to, is this getting me to where I want to go? Or is it a distraction? It was a distraction over and over and over again. And I took note and collected the data, right, on my surveying.
Well, I think there's a reason that Quit Lit is thriving. Quit Lit being the genre of books about giving out alcohol, whether like their memoir or someone's writing kind of like a nonfiction text. I think that they're incredibly useful. Now, they're not for everyone. They've both played a role for both Andee and me, but I think they work well because, again, it's private. You take what you need on your own pace. And I also say that even if someone picked up a Quit Lit title that didn't quite speak to them, there's probably another one that will. Like, Naked Mind isn't my favorite. To me, it speaks a lot more to like the science, which doesn't really appeal to me. Like,
well, that one was really helpful for me because it helped me understand how I got to that place where it was like a problem. And it's because of the media. It's because of the garbage that has been shoved down our throats for decades, right? About how glamorous alcohol is. And, you know, you look at like a bougie cocktail bar and it looks like a swanky place you want to be in, and sophisticated people, and like branding and marketing, they know their shit.
Yeah. And once you then you start paying attention and you
yes.
can't like unhear it. You can't unsee it.
Yes.
And it's like almost in some of these books, it almost like ruins alcohol for you.
It
like,
does.
So I think, you know, back to your original question, and I probably would have made fun of alcohol free, you know, years ago. But then that was before I did all this learning.
I know. I think it's okay to change your mind. You know, and let's give that permission slip to anybody who's thinking about this. It's okay if you loved alcohol like I did and you don't want to love it anymore. You can change. Like, that's allowed. And as soon as I think the worst negative feedback I got when I had made this transition was somebody had said, you know, as soon as you decide to drink again, everybody's going to be all over your ass about it. I was like, wow, what a very discouraging thing to say. And also, like, I didn't do this for anyone but myself. And if I decide to have a glass of wine someday, like, that's my choice. That's not something that I care about broadcasting to people and, like, then taking in the criticism or judgment or, the opinions. It doesn't matter. It's my life. Just like it's your life. Other people's decision to drink or not drink doesn't affect me in any way.
I think because it calls out their insecurities. It's like the fitness world. You look at somebody that's like incredibly in shape, they're going to get a lot of heat. Well, it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of responsibility, takes a shit ton of personal responsibility. There's all these things that go into your fitness lifestyle that calls out the insecurities of the people that are not in that don't do that. So if you take alcohol out of your life, there's no way that people that drink on a regular basis don't have a slew of stories that are like, well, I probably shouldn't have done that. It was pretty fucking stupid. Or I made a bad decision during X or whatever that they wish they didn't have in their life. And then you're showing them that not only can you be yourself smarter, better, faster, more efficient, you're living a great life and you enjoy yourself and you're happy with yourself. That's going to be a huge kick in the pants to somebody that is insecure. Just brings that all to light. So I think that's why I know when I stopped drinking, my buddies were like, I have never seen you without a beer in your hand. Like, I don't even know who you are. But they would get frustrated with me and I ended up losing all those friends because it was just calling out their inability to make that decision. And whenever I started excelling or when we opened the business and things like that, people were like frustrated that I was successful without it. So I think it's just more based on insecurity than is anything else. It's not knowledge, obviously. The data's there. It's like smoking. The data is there that this will kill you. You have miserable death because of this issue. And alcohol is the same thing. There is tons of data behind it, but it's the insecurity that's the problem.
Because I have to recognize, I'm no one's really said anything to you, but I'm sure they say stuff behind my back. I'm positive. I'm positive. You know what I mean? Like I went to Andy and I both went to school here. Kindergarten through high school. We both went to IU Bloomington. We both have very big networks, and so it's a little weird sometimes when wherever you go and you run into someone you hadn't seen in a long time, and they're like, "Oh my God, how's the business?" And you're like, "Oh my God, everyone knows, right?" And like you kind of said, like, people who, you've had alcohol experiences with before and like, okay, I'm sure they have an opinion. I'm sure they have their thoughts.
And also, I just don't care. At the end of the day, like, we make these decisions for ourselves, not for anyone else. And, I think when you make decisions for other people, it has a higher likelihood of reverting back or not being a permanent decision. And so you've got to make this decision for yourself and only you, because it truly is for your own benefit. Mm-hmm. So what piece of advice would you have for people who are sober curious or might want to experiment with taking a break?
I'll start. I think there has to be some sort of accountability, and whether like announcing it on social media, which can be scary. We talked about that today, or a best friend or a family member, but you can't keep it private. I think I guess my advice would be creating some sort of accountability that someone knows that you're doing that you feel like you have to.
Yeah.
I would say, please be extremely gentle with yourself. Be gentle with your heart and be gentle with yourself. And if you make a mistake, don't give yourself a hard time. And also know that there's an incredible amount of magic on the other side after you do it for a little bit. And it's definitely worth doing, but take it easy.
Chris, what would you say?
I guess a little combo of the both, their statements. I mean, give yourself grace for sure. You're changing habits that have been developed over a long time. I can't give somebody a workout program and a diet and everything else at once. We have to make 1% changes every day. 1% changes are small. You're not, flipping through the book real fast, but they compound to 365% changes every year. So just give yourself some grace, give yourself a long time period, and just make the damn decision. Like, jumping in both feet is the best way to do it. Don't do it anymore is the best way to start it, because then it's gone.
Yeah.
Right?
And I feel like, oh my gosh, I sounded really harsh, compared to Andy's sweet words. But I think that's ultimately what got me over the finish line, was this accountability of
Yes.
Well, and I think going back to our earlier point, the path looks different for everyone. So like somebody may need accountability, and like I kind of did it in silence. Like, I did it very quietly because, one, I was ashamed of myself when I made that decision. Like, I didn't want anyone to know because, one, I didn't want all the questions like, oh, are you an alcoholic? Are you, do you have a problem? Are you at rock bottom? Like, I didn't want to publicize it because also I didn't know how long I was going to last. So that was the other part. Like, it was a little bit of fear-based that got me to make the decision ultimately. But I didn't want to like set myself a goal and then disappoint myself later, or worse, like disappoint somebody I said, hey, hold me accountable. So I almost like the opposite way. I just did it in silence. And then I hit 1 month and was like, okay, now I feel like I can tell people because I hit like one kind of milestone. Like I felt like 1 week was like no big deal. I tried to give up alcohol 1 year for Lent, and I'm not even a practicing Catholic, but for some reason decided I probably knew subconsciously I needed to take a break from it, but like I would drink on Sunday because I'm like, oh, that's the Lord's Day. Like we can take a break on the Lord's Day, right? Even during my 40-day spree. So like I had not gone even like 3 weeks without alcohol since I started drinking it when I was in high school. So like for me, I just needed to be like quiet about it and not give myself any expectations or really any goals with it, because I kind of just like needed to tell myself, hey, we're going to try this and we're just going to see how it goes. And I almost looked at it as like an experiment, and I would take each thing that I had to go to or get through like a concert. I took that one concert and I'm like, okay, what's my strategy going to be here? Well, I know they sell Red Bull at concerts and I'm probably going to need a pick me up. So I'm just going to drink sugar-free Red Bulls all throughout this concert. That like I went into everything that I went to with a strategy, and that strategy was like, all right, that worked. Now I can do the next thing. And, I went up to my college roommate's lake house up in Michigan, and that was my first weekend ever being up there sober. And I packed a cooler of non-alcoholic drinks, and I had a koozie, and I was like, I'm just going to hide my drink from everyone so that they don't know that I'm non-alcoholic right now. And no one knew the wiser. Like nobody knew I wasn't drinking alcohol. So it just felt like I was like a normal person. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this and not stick out like a sore thumb. And no one actually gives a shit if I have alcohol in my drink or not.
I did mine solely based on data, though, when I stopped drinking. The initial decision was I want to compete again in strongman. Alcohol stops me from recovery. So in order to be the best I can be at this event that's 2 months from now, I'm just not going to drink for 2 months. Totally fine. Super easy. So when I'm done, I'm going to have me a zombie dust, which was one of my favorites. And I went to a Chinese restaurant after I competed. I got third in Ohio's Strongest Man. I'm like, this was great. I had 2 sips of that zombie dust, and I'm like, why would I do this? Why would I spend all this time to get where I'm going, to do great, to just revert back to the baseline? Like, what a stupid decision. So I just pushed it off, and I didn't drink again. It just made sense data-wise. So I think you can give yourself grace, and you can have accountability, but you also got to understand why the hell you're doing the thing you're doing.
We hear something we hear all the time in the store is someone say, okay, I was on a break, I had a drink the other night, and I didn't enjoy it, or I threw it out, or I felt terrible, or that I totally regret it, and now I'm here in your store back on my non-alcoholic drinks.
Well, and I think
we hear that quite a bit.
I did that too. I went after 1 year. I tried to drink again, and same experience. I didn't want it. Me too. And I had to do it. Like I actually gave myself permission, and I'm like, the only way you're gonna know that you permanently changed this relationship with my ex, Al, is what I like to call him. The only way I'm gonna know I changed my relationship with alcohol is if I can drink again and I don't want it. And so I tried it, didn't want it. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm rewired.
This conversation has inspired me to be louder about talking about alcohol-free and sharing a story personally.
Well, you're changing people's lives.
You
100%.
are.
You're giving them an opportunity to feel comfortable in a social situation, or offer people drinks when they come over and not ruin their lives. not make it worse, right? You're making them better.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, it's very cool. Plus, the champagne y'all have is fire.
Joyous.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Go get
man.
some Joyous.
Yeah. I love a good mimosa. You put that in orange juice, it's money, man.
Oh, yeah.
And Joyce is so she's sober owned. I mean, or sober owned, but the founder is sober, women owned. We love hyping women owned brands, but I think there's something special about someone who is living the values of their brand. You know, back to a previous conversation, we're not totally comfy with the marketing of like, hey, use this to alternate or use this to cut back, because ultimately we don't believe in moderation. We ultimately believe that alcohol free is living your best life.
Well, and I love that one of your core values is clarity, because it truly is like the ultimate path to getting to clarity is sobriety.
Thank you. Our tagline is also be a better host. So when you've got somebody coming over to your house or you're hosting, having an alcohol-free option where you can have that social camouflage element and everybody can have something in their hand and nobody's the wiser, it's none of their damn business. And you have made that person's night. It has happened to me a couple times where I've gone to my friend Danielle's house and she had some beers in her fridge and I felt so loved. I felt so seen. It just made my night. And just having those options for people, that inclusivity and that welcome nature is so lovely.
You can take host out of there and just put whatever words you want in there. Right. Be a better whatever. Mm-hmm. I think that's fantastic.
Do better.
I love it. Well, is there anything else that you want to let the world know, or at least our audience, that we haven't already talked about?
No, like I said, thank you. Just even this conversation has inspired me to speak up more on my own social media about choosing this lifestyle and the benefits, and just being proud. Being proud.
There's just so many drinks that exist these days that even 6 months ago didn't exist. I mean, always just finding something new, all these drinks that have adaptogens for cognitive health or to calm you down. I mean, there's too many things out there that exist to not have a good time and to not have lots of options. So stay fun.
I totally
Stay
agree.
fun. That's
Let's
it right there.
Stay fun. Well, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
In person, live. And for those of you who can't see, Chris has the most amazing French fry earrings in right now.
Heck
I'll
yeah.
leave you with that.
I should have told Andee to wear hers too. We could have been matching.
Oh, I love it. Well, how can they connect with you ladies if they want to get more information on Loren's AF or just reach out to you and have a conversation?
Instagram is where we're most active. Drink Loren's AF. We respond to every email. So hello@lorensaf.com. We talked about our website, has quite a bit of information on it, and also where you can find our digital magazine.
Amazing. Thank you, ladies.
This was great. Thank y'all.
Thanks for listening to Redefining Resilience.
To learn more about building your mental and physical readiness, check out odysseyresilience.org.
And follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok.